Yo, what's going on? Today is the first day that I've been out on the trail practicing nature photography in almost 2 months. It's been about 56 days, 57 days. The last time that I went out was on my birthday, and then a few days later, at the end of that week, Hurricane Helene came through the area of western North Carolina in which I live and absolutely devastated our area. So, with that, I was just itching to get out. It's mid November. All of the leaves are on the ground. The trees are bare. This is a time of year in which landscape photographers call stick season. And this is a time of year in which I typically wouldn't go and shoot. I would typically spend this time in my office in front of the computer editing the photos that I captured from fall. But I just felt the need to get out. I've been cooped up in my office. I've been going through the motions of dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. So I just needed to get out and practice photography. And really, what my goal was to practice the practice of landscape photography. Like I said, this isn't a time of year in which I would typically shoot. So I'm not expecting to come away with anything which is going to go on my website, which is going to go on my gallery portfolio. Really, what I'm wanting to do as a car goes by, I'm right on the side of the Blue Ridge Parkway. I'm on a trail off the Blue Ridge Parkway. Car just went by. But what I'm wanting to do is work on my compositional eye, get back into hiking shape, really take my time and break out of some of the habits that form when you become experienced. Put my bag down, get my lenses out, change my lenses, sort of look for things that I typically wouldn't look for, and just practice the practice of landscape photography, take my time with it, and enjoy nature. So I drove a couple of miles up the road to another trail off the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I was able to find a pretty decent composition that I would shoot in any other conditions at any other time of year, right behind me, right there. You can't quite see it, you can't quite really make out what it is from the angle that I took it from, but I'm going to go home or go to the office. I'm going to upload the photo. I'm going to edit it, and hopefully it comes out as good as I think it will. But, that's another benefit of going out when you otherwise wouldn't necessarily get out to practice landscape photography, is that you still get to find good compositions. You still get to have, the potential for photos that you would otherwise enjoy. So, it just goes to prove that you don't have to get out in the most ideal conditions. Right now, it's pretty chilly. It was raining. It's gloomy. There's an overcast sky, which personally I love to shoot in. But, the time of year, stick season, mid November, I typically wouldn't be out photographing in nature. I'd be in the office, in the studio, working on photos from the past months. So, don't always have to get out when it's most ideal. You could still go and practice the practice of landscape photography. All right, I'm back at the office. I've uploaded the photos to my computer. So let's talk about what I mean when I say practicing the practice of photography. When you think about other fields, say the medical field or the legal system, lawyers have law practices. Doctors have medical practices. That's because the very nature of their work is ever evolving. It's not set in stone. Cannot become an expert. Technology evolves, so that means the medical field evolves. Society changes, culture changes. So with that, laws change. You constantly have to be learning, constantly have to evolve as your field evolves. And I think that's the same for any creative field, including photography. So often when we are experienced in something, we rely on our preconceived or our preconstructed knowledge base. We fall back on habits. We fall back on past experiences. And we oftentimes get by on those. And that could be beneficial, especially when you have a deadline. But oftentimes, I think it could be a little restrictive to your creative journey, to your imagination.
I think oftentimes when we rely on our habits, when we rely on what we already know, we're giving up a chance to learn something new, a chance to experiment. So when I say practicing the practice of photography, for me, that looks like going out in a time of year that I otherwise would not go out, or a time of year where I would just probably be in the office editing photos, giving myself a chance to look at compositions, to look at the woodlands, to look at the mountains, to look at nature in a different light, to look for something different. That means getting myself reacclimated with hiking. Oftentimes, right after fall, I don't hike as much. I'll go out in the winter a few times. I'll chase snow, but oftentimes I really don't go out during that time of year until, spring starts to come around. And, my body sort of trails off when it comes to hiking. I lose those muscles. So that means getting out and constantly working those muscles out. It also means not being a lazy photographer. Oftentimes when, like conditions like it was, where it's wet, dreary, cold, you're hiking in elevation and really high elevation gains, long hikes, you sometimes get lazy. And there are times I know where I've thought about a composition and said, man, this would really work if I changed my lens, if I got a longer lens. But taking off this bag requires work. Going into the bag, switching my lens out, might have to take off gloves or take off something. My hands are cold. I'm tired. I'm just going to shoot with what I have on right now. And sometimes that's not the way to go. You're not going to get the best shot by being a lazy photographer, clearly. So that means, practicing just using my gear and using it wisely, not just settling for what I have already in my camera. That's what I mean by the practice of or practicing the practice of landscape photography. That's really what I mean. All right, let's look at some of these photos that I got.
Okay, let's take a look at the first photo that I took on the first trail. This is a composition that I'm actually happy with and a photo that I find interesting. And it's one that I wouldn't have gotten if I went out during the spring, summer, or fall. It would have been too lush and I wouldn't have noticed it. And I got it because I went out practicing the practice of landscape photography, purposely putting myself in a situation that I wouldn't have otherwise been in, a time of year that I typically spend editing photos from previous seasons. And, mid-November, all the leaves are off the trees. It gave me an opportunity to see the woodland, to see the forest a little differently. And, not being lazy with my photography either. I had to use my telephoto lens. I had to stop, switch my lenses. And that might seem like a very small thing. But like I said, when it's cold, it's wet, it's raining, you're going uphill in the mountains, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, Pisgah National Forest, where I'm often photographing, where I'm often documenting nature. There's a lot of really steep elevation gain in a short amount of time. And this trail was no different. So you could find yourself feeling pretty tired. I'm carrying my camera gear. I'm carrying about 20 pounds with me. You could find yourself feeling a little lazy or a little worn out, but I actually took the time to switch my lenses and search for this composition and really dial it in. And it's one that I like. I find it interesting. This tree here lit up, a lot of light spilling onto it, contrasting with the dark background, the green pine needles from the pine trees, this dark tree right here that's shrouded in shadow. Very interesting textures, the texture of the woods with the texture of the pine needles. It's a composition that I like. Is it blowing me away? Absolutely not. But it's a fun photo. And I had a fun time actually finding it and taking it and working on it. And also it gave me a chance to experiment with some different editing techniques, let's say. All right, let's check out the next photo. Let's look at this second photo that I took. And this is from the second trail that I went to a couple of miles up the road from the original. And I really enjoyed this one. This is a photo that I actually would have taken any time of year. And I'm actually pretty excited to go back to this location and complete this hike, but and get this photo again as well. But I really enjoyed the light coming down from the top, spilling onto the background, illuminating the background and the background trees, illuminating these trees right here. And what really kind of captured me was the almost symmetrical nature of this composition. I like the sweeping sort of landscape here. This almost forming a U. It's almost like a smile, honestly, combined with this down tree that has obviously been down for a minute. Is bending to the shape of this ditch. It almost looks like it could have been a river or a creek. Maybe when it rains, it gets flooded, and that's why you have this sort of carved out path right here. But it's something that I actually really, really enjoy. And I'm going to go back to this trail. I'm definitely going to go back to this location right here and take this photograph in the spring or summer. And I'm excited to see what it looks like. I think the only thing that I would change is maybe step a little closer, maybe get rid of this little tree right here. Maybe get rid of these rocks, just maybe stand right up in here and shoot a little wider so I can get a little more of this. Maybe honestly shoot it vertically in a portrait orientation. But otherwise, I think this is a really nice photo and one that I would take otherwise any time of year. Yeah, I mean, look, just such cool light. Just really good dappled light coming in. Yeah, it's one that I enjoy and it's one that I'm happy with. And I wouldn't have found it if I didn't go out. Okay, let's check out the last photo that I took. And this is actually when I was leaving. This is at the Overlook parking lot. And what I'm doing is I'm looking, I guess, westerly from the Overlook onto a mountain. And this is a bit of a chaotic photo. But what caught my eye and my thought process behind this, and I'd actually be interested to see what this looks like in the fall, maybe with a few more leaves on the trees, or maybe at the beginning of spring. But what really caught my eye was the striking nature of these bare branches. They almost look like tangled webs, and how interesting it was sitting in contrast to the background, to sort of the really deep colors in the background with this bare tree that is illuminated and that's shining really bright. That's really what caught my eye. And there's something interesting that I see, that I find in this picture. I can't quite pinpoint it. I think what it is just these branches sort of outreaching. But it's an interesting photo. It's one that I think I'm going to sit with a little longer. It's one maybe that I'll think about and examine, but it's one that I do find interesting. And I think, honestly, I say that I can't pinpoint why I find it interesting. It is these branches, almost looking like tendrils, looking like fingers reaching out to try and grasp something. There's something a little bit mysterious about it, something that reminds me of a haunted house or haunted woods. Yeah, that's what it is. But it's a little chaotic. It's a little hard to make out, but it caught my eye, and it's one that I found interesting. And again, it's just working that composition wide, practicing the practice of landscape photography. That's what it's all about. I want to give a big thank you to everyone who watched my previous video, who commented, who liked it, the subscribers that I got. Thank you so much. There aren't a lot of views on it, but to me, that's a lot, and it really means a lot. If you made it this far, like the video. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel, share it. Let me know which photo you liked, if you liked any. If you didn't like them, maybe let me know kindly, or just keep it to yourself. That's fine too. But enjoy your day, your evening, your week, your month. Much love. See y'all later. Peace.